So let's compare the flagship Samsung Galaxy S22 with the budget Samsung Galaxy A32. So both of these offer 5G capabilities, but one is a flagship level phone for $800, the S22, and the A32 is a budget device that can be had for as low as free on prepaid carriers. So it's a very compelling argument. You got flagship with all the bells and whistles versus the value-driven device that has one of the most important features, and that is price. So let's go ahead and compare these. So we already mentioned both of these are 5G phones. The S22 is a little bit smaller overall and more lightweight than the A32 5G. Build quality a little bit different. S22 glass front, glass back, aluminum frame. A32 glass front, plastic frame, plastic back. So great build quality versus plastic build quality. S22 has an eSIM embedded, which is very handy, while the A32 does not. S22 has IP68 dust and water resistance, so you can dunk it in water for up to 1.5 meters for 30 minutes, while the A32 does not have any of that stuff. Now for the displays, you have 120 hertz refresh rate on the S22, so very buttery smooth. A32 has two versions, has a 60 hertz version and a 90 hertz refresh rate. So if you get the 90 hertz, that should be a little bit better. But for the most part, it's not going to be as buttery smooth as the S22. Size of the screens, the S22 more compact, 6.1 inches. But if you like a bigger screen, the A32 has a 6.5-inch display. Resolution is 1080p on the S22, 720 on the A32. So PPI is 425 on the S22 versus 270 on the A32. And you get always on display on the S22. Software-wise, both are running Samsung UI on top of Android. You have Android 12 on the S22, Android 11 on the A32, but Samsung has made a push to make Android updates available on both of these, so expect more updates on these phones. For the chipset, you have a best-in-class Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 on the S22 versus a MediaTek 720 on the A32. This really won't matter unless you're really pushing some crazy apps like gaming and stuff. So it shouldn't be too much of a big difference for the average user. Now for internal storage, the S22 has 128 gigs, A32 64. But the A32 has a micro SD card slot. Very important features stand out right there. So for a couple of bucks, you could put a lot more storage on the A32. As for RAM, you got 8 gigs on the S22 versus 4 gigs on the A32. So that just means that a lot more power users will not notice any type of apps crashing on the S22. But 4 gigs seems a little bit low. Honestly, I think a lot of other budget phones carry 6 gigs for the most part, and I think that's the baseline, especially they come at the same price point as the A32. So be aware of that. Now for the camera situation, you have 3 cameras on the S22. You got 4 cameras on the A32. So this is a very interesting comparison between a flagship and a budget, is the camera situation. So the main camera on the S22 is 50 megapixels. It also has 10 megapixel telephoto, 12 megapixel ultra wide. So a nice, very good flagship setup for the camera on the S22. But the A32 is surprisingly good too. 48 megapixel main camera, 8 megapixel ultra wide, 5 megapixel macro, 2 megapixel depth. And the S22 shoots video up to 8K. The A32 should shoot up to 4K. So overall, the better camera system will be the S22. It's probably more of the standout features that separates a flagship from a budget device, but the A32 is no slouch because it could take really great pictures and video as well, as long as you're in the daylight. That's a big difference right there. Flagships tend to take better low light pictures and videos compared to the budget offerings. But for the most part, Samsung makes great cameras all around, including for its budget devices. So that's something to keep in mind, but I'm impressed that it even shoots at 4K. So the cheapest 5G phone on Samsung shoots in 4K. But, you know, take it with a grain of salt. Android doesn't offer a lot of video editing options, especially ones that are free. unlike the iPhone. So you're definitely going to be doing editing on other devices for the most part if you're making a big project. So keep that in mind if you're thinking about the cameras. And speaking of the cameras, selfie camera, 10 megapixel 4K on the S22 versus 13 megapixels 1080p. And the S22 doesn't have a headphone jack, while the A32 does, so that's good for headphones and for connecting to your car via aux. Bluetooth 5.2 on the S22, 5.0 Bluetooth on the A32. The S22 has NFC, and the A32 depends on the market you're in. Both have USB Type-C for charging. For unlocking and security, S22 has a under the display fingerprint reader. A32 has a side-mounted fingerprint reader. So they both do the same job, and the fingerprint readers are in different places, but they'll do the same thing. So there's no real big difference there. S22 has Samsung DeX, which is a desktop operating system if you connect it to a monitor, but if you have a laptop or whatever, I'd rather just use that. As for the battery, big difference here, S22 has a 3700 milliamp battery versus the A32's 5000 milliamp battery. So that's one thing that the S22 really lacks, is a big battery, and it's kind of disappointing because budget devices have nice huge batteries at 5000 milliamps. So there's no real reason why the S22 offer, for the price that you're paying, you're getting a smaller battery. And I know that they're trying to make improvements with the software and the chipset, but 3700 just seems very, very small to me. So I could bet that the A32 has better battery life by a mile. And the S22 has fast charging at 25 watts versus 15 watts on the A32. It has fast wireless charging, reverse wireless charging on the S22. The A32 doesn't have that gimmicky stuff. So for me, it's a moot point between these devices because the A32 just simply has a big old battery, and battery in a phone basically just means which one can last the longest. And with that more lower end screen and the lower end processor and the bigger battery, the A32 definitely wins out on usability. If you can't find the place to charge, then the A32 will probably be a better phone for you. So if you're looking for a Samsung device and you have $800, the S22, I mean, if money's not an object to you and you have a lot of it, the S22 will definitely be a great phone. Except I'm very worried about that battery because, yeah, 3700 milliamps is just not good enough. I don't care how optimized the phone is. The A32 5G is the cheapest Samsung phone that's available, and you could also put in the A13 in there in that conversation as well. But this one actually has a 4K camera, and it has pretty much everything that you needed to do. It's a very impressive phone for the price that you're paying. Big battery life, micro SD card slot. It has 4 cameras, it shoots in 4K. Pretty much does everything that you needed to do, and it has the same Samsung UI. It's gonna feel exactly the same as the flagships, and you don't have to, if you're getting phones at the postpaid carriers, you're gonna be signing up pretty much for 36 months of payments plus the service. Even if you throw in trade-ins, it's a bad value. The A32 is geared more towards prepaid users. And it's gonna be, you can find it for free when you put in your numbers, so it's pretty much a no-brainer there. The S22 is not an improvement over the S21 or even the S20, and yeah, it just shows how far budget phones have come. So let me know your opinions. Thank you for watching.